Yeah, Pokémon. There's few franchises that can hit me with nostalgia quite as much as Pokémon can. When I was really little, the first ever video game system I ever had was the Game Boy Advance SP. Though my first Pokémon game was Ruby and Sapphire Pinball, it wasn't long until I was able to get my hands on my first mainline Pokémon game, Pokémon Emerald. I saw the cover with this awesome green snake looking thing, and childhood me thought it was the coolest thing I had ever seen. Needless to say, I fell in love with Pokémon Emerald instantly, making me yet another of many kids to be a part of the Pokémon craze. I would play the games, collect the trading cards, watch the anime. I was a Pokémon fan through and through. These past few years, I've fallen off the Pokémon hype train. I found myself not really wanting to play most of the traditional Pokémon games, as I've skipped Sword and Shield as well as Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Yet I find myself continuously picking up the spin-off games, like new Pokémon Snap, Pokken, and Pokémon Mystery Dungeon DX. Pokémon is no stranger to spin-offs, boasting over 50 different spin-off games based on the ever-popular franchise. And the variation of these spin-off games is quite substantial. You have games where you take photos of Pokémon, play as a little toy Pokémon, race with Pokémon, go to war with Pokémon, etc. However, one of the more popular and well-received Pokémon spin-offs are the Mystery Dungeon games. The games the series was originally based on, simply called Mystery Dungeon, were a series of roguelike role-playing games, where the player needed to navigate maze-like dungeons. These dungeons were randomly generated, meaning that the layout of the floors, the location of items, and stairs to get to the next floor were never identical, with much of the challenge coming from being unable to memorize the layout of a dungeon. One day, Nintendo decided to collaborate with Spike Chunsoft to create Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue, with Red being released for the Game Boy Advance and Blue being released for the DS. Combining these two series together was certainly unexpected, but the games were immensely popular when they were released. Years later, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness were released for the Nintendo DS in 2007. Both versions of the games had the same story and gameplay, but had a couple version-exclusive Pokémon, as well as some version-exclusive items, strangely enough. However, 2 years later, an enhanced version of both games, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, was released. Explorers of Sky had the same story and gameplay, but came packaged with the Pokémon of both versions of the game, and includes some new Pokémon, all the items, new shops, and 5 bonus episodes, featuring short stories with various other members of the cast. With all these improvements, Explorers of Sky essentially rendered Explorers of Time and Darkness obsolete, being the definitive version of the game. And it's that very game we'll be taking a look at today. I've wasted enough time with the history lesson. Let's turn the page and take a look at Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky for the Nintendo DS. When you first start Explorers of Sky, you are greeted with a short personality test, with your answers determining what Pokémon you'll be for the adventure. I've always loved this feature, but I admit as a kid I would often restart the game until I got a Pokémon I liked. This time I was determined to stick with whichever Pokémon was chosen for me, and so I was a Shinx. You then get to pick a partner Pokémon from a handful of choices. My brother and I would always name our partners after each other when we played, but for the sake of being anonymous, my partner was a Vulpix named Gold, thus creating the duo Silver and Gold. After a fierce storm, you wake up on a beach with no memories, and despite being a human, you've been transformed into a Pokémon. You're found by a partner, a timid Pokémon who wants to be an explorer as part of the Exploration Team Guild. You help him get a precious treasure back from Zubat and Koffing, and, with nowhere else to go, you decide to join your partner as part of an exploration team. Together, you join the Wigglytuff Guild as rookies, as you work alongside your fellow guildmates to become a full-fledged rescue team. By the way, I love the way that all the various Pokémons are used and given personality in this game. Chatot being the strict but well-meaning second in command of the guild, Magnezone is the chief of police with Magnemites being the other officers, Loudred is the guild's alarm clock for crying out loud. All the members of the guild have distinct personalities and quirks that make them all stand out from each other, and it's just so charming, and I really grew to like them as my fellow guildmates. The game was just as effective as making me like my teammates as it did making me dislike our rivals. During the story, you'll encounter a group of bullies called Team Skull, no not that one, consisting of Zubat, Weezing, and their leader Skuntank. As far as characters go, Team Skull are pretty one-dimensional, they're all just kinda jerks. However, the game is really good at making them get in your way and screwing you over. You hate these guys, and you want to get strong enough to beat them, making it all the more satisfying when you do. Of course, I'd be remiss to talk about the game's characters and not bring up the most important character, your partner. To be honest, your partner is a bit of a loser. They get scared pretty easily, is naive, and they often get too emotional to think things through logically during the heavier points in the story. And despite all that, I love them. You spend so much time with your partner, going on adventures, overcoming difficult odds, that you naturally build a strong sense of camaraderie with them. When they start to stand their ground during difficult situations, I feel sincerely proud of them. When they're attacked by Team Skull, I want to knock Team Skull out for daring to try and mess with my partner. So what if your partner isn't a cool badass? At the end of the day, that's your partner, and by the end of the game, I wouldn't have it any other way. Now there's more to the story than simply growing as a rescue team. As you and your partner go on adventures, multiple mysteries start to reveal themselves. You notice that you have the ability to see both future and past events by touching certain objects. Elsewhere, a thief named Grovyle is stealing items called time gears, which when removed, stop the flow of time in the area. Why did you become a Pokemon? Why do you have this strange ability to see different events? Why would Grovyle want to stop the flow of time? The game does an excellent job setting up all kinds of mysteries, all which genuinely intrigued me and motivated me to keep playing. I don't want to say any spoilers about the story of this game, as I believe it is absolutely something that someone should play through and experience for themselves. I don't think the story was just good, I thought the story was excellent, which is something I never thought I would say about a Pokemon game. The game has a surprisingly mature story, with some really powerful character moments, resulting in an ending that I am not ashamed to say caused my eyes to well up with tears. To me, this is the best story a Pokemon game has ever had. I personally have nothing but praise for it, and if you're a Pokemon fan, I truly believe you owe it to yourself to experience it. In terms of presentation, Explorers of Sky has some really gorgeous sprite work. The environments especially, which the game takes time to show off with some really nice sprite images throughout the game, which do a great job of setting the tone for a scene and showing off the world this game takes place in. This nice sprite work doesn't really translate into the mystery dungeons themselves though, with the dungeons looking noticeably barren. I understand why this was done, as randomized dungeons can't really allow for detailed environments, but going from the gorgeous treasure town into any dungeon, there is a noticeable shift in quality. Taking a closer look at the gameplay, Explorers of Sky follows the same formula I described in the original Mystery Dungeon games. Each dungeon is randomized, with the goal being to find the stairs to move up to the next floor. The location of items, where Pokemon spawn, the location of the stairs, and the entire layout of each floor is random. As you work your way to harder dungeons, the amount of floors in each dungeon and the size of each floor grows. Naturally, the game adds various Pokemon mechanics as well. You're getting experience from battles to level up, and each Pokemon of course has their own type, with certain moves being more effective and others being weaker against certain types. I personally very much enjoyed the dungeons in this game, as you never really know what you'll be up against, and the randomized nature means the dungeons won't get too repetitive in layout. How much you'll enjoy Mystery Dungeon hinges on how bothered you can get by aspects of luck in games, as luck does play a huge factor in whether your time in a Mystery Dungeon will be easy or difficult. If you have little patience, this game may not be for you. You can be lucky and have multiple floors where the stairs to the next level just happens to be in the same room, or unlucky enough that it's always the last room you check. Each room also has random traps that you can step on that can't be seen without an item. These traps can warp you to a random room on the floor, put you to sleep, spawn Pokemon in the room, basically nothing that helps you progress. One random element that I think is just unfair are the monster houses. Sometimes when you enter a room, a monster house will trigger, spawning in like 10 plus Pokemon into the room with you. These Pokemon will chase you across the floor, and if you're unlucky enough to have your exit become blocked, you have no choice but to fight them all. I encountered 3 monster houses during my playthrough, 2 of which triggered as soon as I was brought to the next floor, which was aggravating. I was able to fight my way out once, but for the most part if one triggered, and I didn't have the necessary items to deal with it, I considered the run to be a wipe. Another factor that triggers into luck is the type pairing between you and your partner. Each dungeon is typically themed after a select few Pokemon types, which means how easy or how difficult a dungeon is depends on how good or bad you and your partner are against certain Pokemon types. The game does have ways to mitigate this. A little ways into the game, you earn the feature to recruit Pokemon. Sometimes, after beating a Pokemon, they'll want to join your exploration team, with up to 2 additional Pokemon being able to explore dungeons with you at a time. And just like with Pokemon, you can give them nicknames. I really like this feature, as it let me get attached to other Pokemon, and more importantly, they can usually provide type coverage for other Pokemon types you may be struggling against. One problem is that a lot of the story restricts your use of these Pokemon, as some of the bigger story section only allows you and your partner. This led to a few walls that was difficult to deal with, since I couldn't use a type against certain Pokemon. With both my partner and I being weak to ground moves, I struggled for a while against my encounter with Groudon. However, there were many later bosses like Grovyle that were technically harder, but because of my partner's typing, we decimated him no problem. What dungeons are easy or hard is completely up to chance, and while I personally enjoyed the moments where I needed to overcome the disadvantages I was up against, I can see why other people may not view it in the same light. Outside of these story missions though, you're free to use your recruited Pokemon as you wish in both the post-game or when tackling the game's mission board. During the downtime of the game's story, you're asked to do missions for the guild at the job bulletin to help out other Pokemon. These jobs can range from finding a lost Pokemon, retrieving a missing item, hunting down an outlaw Pokemon, things like that. By doing these missions you earn money, rare items, and get guild points that let you reach higher ranks. These missions give you the chance to go back and recruit other Pokemon in older maps, since they often have you returning to dungeons you've already been through. So it gives you something to look forward to even though you're replaying past dungeons. Another detail I really like about the way these missions are handled early on, it shows that you can be paid a substantial amount of money for doing these missions. However, since you and your partner are rookies within a guild, the guild takes a majority of the money you earn, leaving you and your partner with only 10% of the total. The game shows you every mission you complete how much money the Pokemon gives, and how little of that you actually receive. This got me fired up, and more eager to be better and graduate from the guild, because once I did, all that money would finally be going to me. It's a great way of giving you extra motivation to become a better team outside of just the story. If I had any gripes with this game, I would probably say it's the fact that if you faint during a dungeon, you lose half the items in your bag as well as all of your money. The money part isn't too much of a problem. The game has a bank that you can put your money in after each mission. The items on the other hand can get a little annoying. I understand why this is the case. The game wants to make sure that you leave for every adventure as prepared as you can be, and provide consequences if you aren't. However, like I said earlier, luck does play a substantial role in how well you perform in the dungeons. All it takes is one unexpected critical hit or a monster house to get knocked out and lose half your items. See, there are multiple parts in the story where you need to go through consecutive dungeons without access to the store, which means you're stuck with whatever items you have to get you through those dungeons. Going back to my time against Groudon, I prepared quite a bit for that dungeon. However, I was a little underleveled, so even with all the items I had, I still lost the fight. Now I lost half my items and needed to try again with what I had. I lost a second time and now had virtually no items in my bag, and there was no way for me to replenish my stock, meaning that in order to beat the dungeon, I just needed to keep playing through until I had leveled up so much that I could just brute force my way through. It can become a test of patience, and while I enjoyed the game enough that I didn't mind too much, I won't pretend like it's not a potential issue for other players. I don't want my last point of this video to be negative, so the last point I'll make about the game is that it is loaded with content. The main story will take you anywhere from about 15 to 20 hours to play through. However, once you beat the game, there's quite a sizable post-game to sink your teeth into. There's some new story threads that you can pursue, new dungeons, you can find legendary Pokemon to recruit to your team, and of course the goal of raising your rescue rank to the highest it can be. And in Explorers of Sky, as you progress through the story, you can unlock 5 bonus episodes that you can play through. These bonus episodes let you play as other characters from the game, which fleshes out the game's story and gives other characters a bit more time in the spotlight. This game is enough to keep players invested for a long while, so even if you take a break for a bit, there will still be lots to do the next time you pop the cartridge in. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky is an incredible game. Everything from the story, the gameplay, the amount of content, it's clear so much effort went into this game. I understand why the Mystery Dungeon games have been among the most successful Pokemon spin-offs. This game is just so charming. I'll admit this was actually my 4th time playing through the game, and I love it just as much as I did the first time I played it all those years ago. If the negatives I described about the random nature of dungeons doesn't bother you, this is a game I would strongly suggest any Pokemon fan give a try. I have a feeling you won't be disappointed. Deciding where on the ranking to place this game was tough, and I needed to really think about it for a while. But after some careful deliberation, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon usurped Resident Evil 6 and claims the #1 spot on my ranking list. Maybe it's the nostalgia talking, but this game is really something special to me. Though I love Resident Evil 6 quite a bit, the absolute delight I feel playing Explorers of Sky is just too great to ignore, and so it earns the crown at #1. Next time we'll be taking a look at a franchise that is very near and dear to my heart, with one of gaming's most iconic mascots. And no, it's not Mario. You'll have to wait and see who I mean. Regardless, thank you so much for watching this video. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.